How do you define the difference between performance marketing and brand marketing? What would be some examples of brand marketing that you do that you consider brand versus performance?
So the main difference is really the objective and the KPI behind it. So an example of brand marketing activations that we have is currently we have this massive TV and out-of-home campaign live in France. All the campaign and all the messaging is really about enforcing the positioning of our brand. It's not talking about the price, about a trial period. It's not even encouraging you to download the app. It's more really about what it means to be a user of Deezer, basically.
Right. The vibe. Deezer is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so beyond Deezer being cool, which is obviously one of our brand value, as you can imagine, it's really about making very clear to our user and non-users that for Deezer, everything is about music and everything is about living the music. We are not positioned on all the audio. We are very centered around the music, and all our branding marketing is really around this core ID. We also want to put back the user really at the core of our brand positioning. So it's also all about the user. It's all about you. As these activations, we don't expect to have immediate return on investment. Besides the fact that we are not able to measure, that's not even the point. As really, what we are using brand trackers, we are using post-tests, so we are really more on the quantitative studies, qualitative studies, to make sure that we do have a positive impact on our brand image, but we know that we won't get immediate revenue out of it. What we do, though, is on performance marketing, we are very focused on amplifying everything that the brand marketing team is doing to make sure that we do, the final little push, the little pinch for users, to make sure that users who are ready to convert will actually download our app and convert into paying sub.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people maybe underestimate about brand marketing is that when people do have some level of affinity or understanding of the brand, then when you do hit them with that performance marketing can be way more efficient and effective because you've kind of like warmed them up as a lead. And to kind of backtrack a little bit, I do think it's interesting, Deezer's scale, you're talking about performance marketing not working anymore. I think a lot of people listening to podcasts would be like, wait a minute, our performance marketing is working great. But what they'll find, and kind of you alluded to, is that as they scale, they're going to find that performance marketing to become less and less and less effective. And then as that happens, that's where the brand marketing does start to come into play. And you do have to be at a certain size and have the finances to be able to spend in a way that isn't going to affect the bottom line immediately and measurably, but will then make your performance marketing more effective. And so this discussion is maybe, for the smaller apps to be thinking in the future, this is how we should be thinking about it. And then for the bigger apps that are already kind of hitting these boundaries, is that they really do need to figure out both sides of the equation.
Exactly. At first, it will work. At small scale, it will be super profitable and you will be super happy. But then it's very short term. So as soon as you have a bigger competitor, it's like we do have at Deezer, when you start fighting against an Amazon, for instance, and Amazon is a very good example, what do you have left if you don't have a brand? What do you have left to actually retain your user and to keep acquiring new ones? All you have is emotional connections that you manage to build with your brand. And this is not something that's, it's an actual expertise to know how to position your brand well, target your audience well, understand very well your users. It's really about art and science. It's about how you do business while being more understanding your users.
Let's talk about the science part of that a little bit, though. How do you measure? You kind of mentioned a little bit like qualitative measurement and doing user panels and things like that. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like you mentioned, you do have KPIs around brand marketing. So then why don't we kind of talk through both the measurement of the performance marketing side of things and the measurement of the brand marketing side, and kind of how you maintain both at the same time, to even on the brand side, making sure that you're not overspending or being wasteful in that spending. And then how do you measure the performance marketing piece and then account for the brand marketing in that?
That's one of my most favorite topics because there's no black and white answer to this question. For me, everything became even more complicated with all the privacy rules. So we cannot track everything we want anymore. On the app side, you cannot even get anything before the last touch point. So when you think about that, it leaves you with pretty much no direct tools to measure the impact of your branding campaigns. For me now, measurement is really about multiplying the source of truth. You have to use different methodologies, different techniques to measure different KPIs and make sure that they all align and they all point to the same conclusions, which you want to be. You're going in the right direction, basically. So the way we do it at Deezer is that we do use many different ways to measure. On the brand marketing side, we are very much measuring the trend of our paid consideration towards our users through quantitative studies. So it means that every quarter, every semester, we ask a panel of our audience how they feel about does Deezer knows music? Does Deezer understand me? Do I feel close to Deezer? And we especially focus on the paid consideration part, which is basically, am I considering paying for Deezer? So that's what's actually reliable on that is that we follow the trend. So maybe it does not measure super precisely the actual level of paid consideration, but what we want to see is an upward trend. That's also what we are doing in terms of performance marketing. We follow the same pattern. So we do have last click attribution. We are working on a multi-touch attribution model, but we know that it will somehow be biased because of the different ways you track on web versus app. And as you know, we cross-device, so we do have a lot more data on a web journey than on an app journey. We also use incrementality testing. So we do as many incrementality tests as possible to validate our assumptions. And as part of the incrementality tests, we also try to figure out what is the right level of investment on the digital upper funnel campaigns, so campaigns that will drive installs or campaigns that will be much more about really reach and frequency. How do these impact our performance campaign? So these are stuff that you can actually do very easily with a conversion lift study through Meta, among other partners. And we have the MMM, which is more of a statistic model. So it's not fully functional at Deezer, not fully satisfying, but this is still something that we are working on to keep the pace of what's really being done in the measurement part at the moment. So my main goal, actually, my main focus is to make sure that we always one step ahead in terms of measurement. For me, measurement is everything. If you cannot measure what you do, all your efforts are a waste. You have no idea what you're doing. So yeah, my next steps really on the measurement side is to use the results of incrementality tests to apply some scores into our MMM. You know, once you validated your assumptions, it's not super scientific, but you can work with these assumptions and end up with a sort of a golden book where you know exactly, precisely what worked, what doesn't work.